Well, we just finished up a great night for leaders here in the box at Lake Forest Huntersville. Sorry if you couldn't be with us, but I wanted to give you a quick rundown of what you missed in case you weren't able to join. So we had a great night, a lot of just laughs and fun time together. I got up and shared for just a few minutes, as I do, and it stretched into a whole bunch of minutes. But it was supposed to be a few minutes, and here were the major points of what I wanted to communicate. I wanted to make sure that we're still on the same page as leaders. What are we about? We're about loving people as they discover and live out their role in God's story. That hasn't changed. Loving people as they both discover and live out their role in God's story. You remember what we prayed if you were there before we launched Lake Forest Davidson? We prayed that God would bring to us hurting people. Well, that hasn't changed. We continue to pray that God will bring to us hurting people and that they will experience the healing that only Jesus can bring as they're in the midst of our community. Whether those hurting people be on your list of 5, my list of 5, or nobody's list of 5, but they might just find healing being a part of Lake Forest Davidson. So that really has not changed. It hasn't changed that a building is not a front burner issue for us. Too many young churches invest too much time, money, and energy trying to get a building. When you're a young church, your money needs to be poured into your people and to your mission. And so we will continue to be a part of Davidson Elementary School for the foreseeable future, and we love being a part of Davidson Elementary School. Nothing has changed. We have no intention of breaking off from being part of Lake Forest and Lake Forest Huntersville. Sure, we have a different vibe, but that's on purpose so that we might reach different sorts of people than who Lake Forest Huntersville is reaching. And so there's no intention to break off and not be a part of Lake Forest Church. Nothing has changed. But you remember what we talked about in August as we prepared for the new school year. For this upcoming year, to continue being faithful to who God is maturing us into being. We're not changing anything big. We're just continuing to mature into who God has made us to be. To do that, we want to be a growing community centered on Christ, marked by generosity. Growing community centered on Christ, marked by generosity. If you'll give me a couple minutes, I just want to share some stories with you around growing community centered on Christ, marked by generosity. I had an older gentleman, 70 years old, Davidson alum, come up to me at a recent gathering in the EPC and say that he had been praying for us and for what we're doing in Lake Forest Davidson for decades. For decades, this man has been praying that a vital church will move and plant itself in the Davidson community. So we are bowed up on the prayers of who knows how many people throughout how many decades, and it's clear God is doing something amazing in our midst. So growing. Are we growing? Yes. We're not going to be neurotic about numbers, but we will be knowledgeable. Year to year, our adult service is up about 17% in the number of people attending. That matters because these people, as you know, are generally hurting people. You know many of these people. You're learning their names and their faces. Why does it matter to grow? Well, the chaplain invited me into his class. It was a class he was teaching. And I found this fascinating. Of the 14 students in the class, all freshmen, 3 said that they were secular, had no religious upbringing. 4 said they were Christian and wanted to grow in their faith in college. 7, half of the class, said that they grew up with some smattering of Christian faith in their background, and they weren't sure what they would do about it in college. Half. If that room is representative, half of the Davidson campus is saying, we have some framework for understanding who Jesus is, but we're not sure what we're going to do about it. And I imagine that your neighborhood or your business place, wherever you live and work, is similar to that. About a quarter saying we're just secular, we don't know anything about God. About a quarter saying we're Christian, we want to keep growing in our faith. And about half saying we're open to Jesus, we know something about him, but we don't know what we're going to do about it. Well, as so long as that is how the world is, it's important to be growing and to be bringing in new people because we want people to know who Jesus is and the healing he wants to bring into their lives. So growing. Community, I'll come back to in a minute. Centered on Christ. Are we staying centered on Christ? Absolutely. In the midst of our Make a Difference series, we had 15 people mark on their Make a Difference Now card that their takeaway from a series about loving the poor, their takeaway was to follow Jesus. 15 people. Praise God for those 15 people. We are staying centered on Christ. Marked by generosity. Look, I don't have to tell anybody watching this video or who is here in this room what it's like to be marked by generosity. Your sacrifice, amazing sacrifice, is the very thing that powers Lake Forest Davidson forward. God's mission through Lake Forest Davidson is being powered by your sacrifice, by your being willing to go the extra mile, say hello to the extra person, set up the extra time, pack up the extra time, love a kid when you're out of patience. I am so grateful for you. We continue to be marked by generosity, and I pray that continues to happen more and more. Well, so growing community centered on Christ, marked by generosity. What about this community part? I think the community part is the place we're most going to grow over the next year. You can't force community, but you can focus on community. Tonight we spent a lot of time talking about how we can continue to focus on community. Here's my encouragement to you as a leader. It's a challenge and an encouragement, and it is this. A leader's primary role is to build up people, not complete tasks. A leader's primary role is to build up people, not complete tasks. Now, I know there are a lot of tasks that have to happen at Lake Forest Davidson. I know that. And we're good at completing them, but it takes a lot of work. I get that. I'm not telling us we need to just add a bunch more stuff to our plate. I'm asking us, in the midst of the tasks, in the midst of all that we have to do, how can we focus on relationships? How can we focus on building up other people? The people we're serving with, the people who are walking through the doors, the children who are coming down the hall. In the midst of the tasks, how can we be about the people, building relationships? Community comes as we build more relational connections between us and better relational connections between us. More and better relational connections between us. So that's my encouragement and my challenge to you. Who's the new person that you've met this last Sunday at Lake Forest Davidson? Who's the person you learned something about last week at Lake Forest Davidson? Do you like to sidle up beside people and ask them questions, get to know who they are, hear what they need, what they love, what they might want to be about? Do you know how to care for the people on your team? Do I know how to care for the people on my team? Am I asking those questions? Am I building those relationships? Am I meeting new people? Not in addition to the task, not trying to give us a whole nother list of things we have to do, but saying in the midst of what we're doing, are we focused on relationships, meeting new people, introducing ourselves to new people, and getting to know better those who we know, including them in what we're doing, asking someone new we met at church to be our Facebook friend so they can become included in the network of what we do. Sure, we'll have formal opportunities to build community, but it's in these informal moments where community really begins to happen. And as we as leaders take the initiative and take the charge, be the front of the moving brigade, as we as leaders do that, focusing on relationships, even in the midst of completing tasks, as we continue to focus more and more on relationships, meeting new people and getting to know better those we already know, Lake Forest Davidson is going to become even more a growing community centered on Christ, marked by generosity. Thanks for giving me some of your time. I hope it's inspiring. I hope you'll watch it again so that you'll know what we want to be about. Growing community centered on Christ, marked by generosity. As Matt Glass would say, much love to you. As I would say, thank you for your sacrifice. I pray that you experience great joy.